Okay.
All right, we'll go ahead and officially call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Dr. Jofrion,
Here.
Dr. Jofrion's present. Adrian Colopy.
Here.
Adrian is present. Dr. Stephen Corbett.
Here.
Dr. Stephen
All right,
Corbett.
we'll go ahead and officially call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Dr. Jofrion.
Here.
Dr. Jofrion is present. Adrian Colopy.
Here.
Adrian.
Yeah, that's Kyril.
Continue with the roll call. We think we have everything ready to go. So we'll just start roll call over.
Okay. Dr. Arthur Jofrion.
Here.
Dr. Jofrion's present. Adrian Colopy.
Here.
Adrian is present. Dr. Stephen Corbett.
Here.
Dr. Stephen Corbett's present. Angie Day. Angie Day is not present. Joelle Flaherty. Joelle's present. Heidi Goday. Heidi Goday is not present. Dr. Angie Franklin.
Here.
Dr. Angie Franklin is present. Becky Luke.
Here.
Becky Luke is present. Jeff Powell. Jeff Powell is not present. Catherine Saragusa.
Here.
Present. Kelly Washington.
Here.
Kelly Washington is present. Molly Williams. Molly Williams is not present. Dr. Rosalind Wright.
Here.
Dr. Wright is present. So we have 9 members in attendance, so we have a quorum.
Excellent. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with some introductions. We thought that that would be appropriate since we have people coming from all over the state. And then we also have several individuals from the department, from different divisions. And so we'll definitely allow them to introduce themselves. As you're introducing yourself, what we would like you to do is identify yourself, your organization, the role you play in the organization, and of course, your connection to Montessori. We think that that's extremely important. So again, identify yourself, your organization, your role, and your connection to Montessori. My name's Arthur Jofrion. I am the Director of Educator Certification and Credentialing. And I have been tasked with the creation of the Montessori Task Force. Prior to my role here at the department, I was the Executive Assistant Superintendent in the Rapides Parish School System, which has 2 Montessori schools. And then when I was superintendent of the Iberville Parish School System, we actually opened a Montessori school as a turnaround for a school that was considered at risk or failing. Christy?
Christy Ballou, Director of Certification and Chief of Staff for Dr. Jofrion's team. My connection to Montessori lies with the work that we do here. We do offer some Montessori certifications, and I'm helping Dr. Jofrion facilitate the task force.
Hi, I'm Becky Luke. I work at Cypress Grove Montessori Academy in St. James Parish. I am considered the principal / director there. We've been open for 6 years. We were tasked to open a Montessori school to help with a desegregation lawsuit. So our school is a public school, but it is lottery based. We must be 50% Black and 50% non-Black. So that is kind of what it is. My connection, I've been there since the onset. I am happy to say I have received all 3 of my diplomas, and it is on my teaching certificate. So I am so excited to have done that. I embrace Montessori. I do not think I can go back to traditional learning, which if I haven't said, I have 31 plus years in education. So I am officially in drop. Finished my first year. And as you can see, I'm still very passionate about education and really know that educating the whole child is extremely important, and allowing them those 3 freedoms should be the basis of not just Montessori, but I feel it should be the basis of all traditional schools. So I'll get off my phone.
Morning, I'm Angie Franklin. I am the principal of Maple Brasher Montessori in Rapides Parish. I took over Maple Brasher after Dr. Jofrion left. They were an F school traditional, and I was tasked with transitioning the traditional elementary school to a Montessori school base. So we are in our 8th year of our transition. Along with that, I hold a MACD certification in leadership, and I'm also assisting Mr. Powell, who is our superintendent, with. We now have 3 public Montessori schools in Rapides Parish, and I assist him with ensuring that all of our teachers get through the credential phases and taking care of all of their paper trail and getting them those different hours at different schools around the state.
Good morning, I'm Joelle Flaherty. I'm the president of the Louisiana Montessori Association. I'm a Montessori parent, a Montessori grandparent. I am a certified Montessori teacher for elementary 1 and elementary 2 ages. I'm the head of school at Montessori Educational Center in Alexandria. I have a master's degree in Montessori education from St. Catherine University, and I'm very delighted to be here today.
Good morning, I'm Adrienne Colby. I'm the Chief Academic Officer at Providence Schools in New Orleans. We started at the charter school and Montessori school in 1981 or 82. We've expanded. We have a French program. Now we have other school sites. So we're a charter management organization now. I came up as a Montessori upper L teacher. I have my MACD, my Montessori admin credential from Houston Montessori Center. And I think like everyone else, I do feel really strongly that a lot of things that make Montessori school special are just good teaching, right? And good practices. So I'm excited to see what we can do to improve credentialing and make this more accessible.
Great. My name is Steve Borg. I'm the CEO of Audubon Schools. I've been in that role since my 3rd year as CEO of Audubon Schools. We've run 3 schools, really 2 schools on 3 campuses, Audubon Uptown and Audubon Gentilly. As Adrienne said, Audubon Uptown has a French component, but it also has a long-standing Montessori component that's been around since 1981. And then Audubon Gentilly is a school that was founded on Montessori principles. And so it is a school that has philosophies of Montessori with multi-age classes at our lower levels, but it becomes maybe more traditional as you move forward. But the idea is to create foundations of Montessori within that school, which is a school that is still growing and still finding its way in different ways. So, very happy to be here, very happy to support this process, and we've got some outstanding educators at Audubon who are Montessori credentialed and are leading some incredible work. It's one of the most sought after schools in New Orleans, I think for that reason. And so just again, looking forward to assisting and doing the support system.
I'm Kate Fairview, I'm from Kingston, Parish. I am at Roseland Montessori School and like Becky's school. We came to be through a desegregation lawsuit. So 13 years ago, we began our school, and I've been there since the start of it. It's been quite exciting to see the ups and downs. I have been in education for 24 years. I am also certified in elementary level 2, and I have admins from primary and upper as well. I am the Color Montessori specialist there, and my role is to assist in recruiting students, to assist teachers, to do some of their training, not officially training yet of NACT accredited training, but to help them along the way in the transition into the public setting.
Hello, I'm Kelly Washington. I'm the newly assistant principal of the Duke Rock School. Prior to that, I worked at Belfair Montessori Magnet, started as a primary teacher there, moved up to being a lower elementary teacher, and continued moving up to being a Montessori specialist. We offered support to our Montessori teachers, both at Belfair and where I'm at Duke Rock. I am NACT certified in primary and lower elementary, and I'm excited that this task force is finally taking place. So.
Good morning. My name is Rosalind Wright. I am the Director of Magnet Programs in East Baton Rouge Parish School System. Basically, I'm here because we are having some issues, honestly, with providing, first of all, certification for our teachers who want to become Montessori certified, because this certification it's a beast. And then also we want to make sure that we are doing what's right for children in everything that we do in East Baton Rouge Parish. So we know that our schools are kind of running on those Montessori principles, not necessarily true Montessori curriculum. So all of this is just a part of what we're trying to fix in our district.
I'm Lana Hutchinson. I'm with the certification team. So that's my big connection, other than personal connections, but that's what we do is process the certifications.
Yeah, kind of the same. I'm Rachel Norman, lead specialist on the certification team, work a lot with policy, trying to, get some of these initiatives pushed through. So happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Dr. Pam Schooler. I'm the superintendent of Office of School Choice. I've been in education, we don't want to say because I think I'm older than everybody here. But I started out in charter school, traditional charter school, was the executive director there for many years. And in our Office of School Choice, we support all choices. And so we're glad to be here and be able to support you guys in any way, any fashion that looks like. And it's great to get to know people in the Montessori world. When I got to my charter, that was actually one of the things when I started. They were open a couple of years and they had a lot of the philosophy of the Montessori. And actually, we are learning that some of our pods, our learning pods, are implementing some of the Montessori. So we're excited to learn more about it and here to support. Thank you for inviting us.
Happy to have you here.
So I'm Caleb Moore, Deputy Chief of Staff for the Office of School Choice. So everything Dr. Schooler said, I work to help her with on our team.
I am Brittany Cochran. I'm Director of Academics for our Early Childhood Strategy team here at the department. And my background includes all sorts of early elementary, early childhood experiences. And I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm Deshae Johnson. I'm the magnet coordinator of the King Parish School System. My background includes being a high school teacher, middle school teacher, magnet specialist for the International Baccalaureate primary year program, assistant principal, and now the magnet coordinator
for our school system. Our school system has many different magnets in it. It came about, as Kay was talking about, through a desegregation lawsuit, but long before that was even reopened, our school system was doing research on magnet school and school choice. And that's where they were lending itself to. And so we're very vested in school choice. We have 2 Montessori schools in Tanco Parish. And I've been tasked with supporting the Montessori and making sure that we improve it and it continues and is sustained in our school system.
I'm the Deputy Chief of Policy here at the department. My connection to Montessori, I have 2 high schoolers and they both were in Montessori programming from 2-year-olds through pre-K. So good, and I loved it. You've been super successful in school now. I think it's largely because
I'm Nikki Landry, Executive Director of Education Policy. I work with all of our teams across the department to help develop the implement policy revisions.
So as you can see, there is a wealth of knowledge, and I think it's very clear why you were asked to serve. I do want to thank my LDOE colleagues for being here. One of the things that we knew was that this didn't just lie in certification. It was something that would probably make an impact across the department. So I certainly appreciate you all being here and your input. The next agenda item is the election of a co-chair. We use co-chair because I will also serve as co-chair. The person who you all elect will work with me to create the agenda for future meetings, as well as help to set direction. So at this time, we will open the floor for nominations of a co-chair. So
And then Molly, I mean, I know this community here.
yeah, so Molly is excused. She had conflicts she could not resolve. Mr. Powell is excused. His wife fell and broke her wrist, and she had to have surgery this morning. Miss Day was not able to get here, and there was a 4th person. Oh, Miss Goday, her principal wouldn't release her for today because there was some professional development and things going on. So I do know that Mr. Powell would be willing to serve. He and I have had some conversations about that. Nikki, would it be okay to have someone elected the chair if they're not present?
No, when you miss the meeting, get assigned all the stuff. Actually, the only requirement would be that, if someone were to nominate him, that he accepted, and if you are vouching for his agreement to accept that nomination, then yes, that would be acceptable.
Okay.
Well, then I nominate Jeff Powell.
Yeah.
We have a nomination for Jeff Powell to serve as co-chair. And I can vouch that he was okay with that. He and I did.
So Dr. Wright made a motion, so
We need a
we do need a
second.
second because we do have to follow Robert's Rules of Orders. Okay. Perfect.
So on the motion of Dr. Wright, seconded by, is it Dr. Washington? No, by Miss Washington. We have a nomination for Jeff Powell to serve as the co-chair for the task force. Is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing none.
The motion carries.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the consideration of the Montessori Task Force purpose. One of the things that we thought was important was that we be purpose-driven. And so what we did is we took the language from the Bessie board motion. So for everyone to be aware, Dr. Belinda Davis had been working sort of behind the scenes with Montessori. She asked that we have a motion on the Bessie agenda. And so we did have a motion. It received the first, the second, and a unanimous approval. And what we did is we took the language directly from the motion. So what we're proposing to be the purpose, and obviously this is just in draft format, would be to study and make recommendations regarding public Montessori education issues, including Montessori certification, to include input from national organizations and experts, including but not limited to MACD. So that was the exact motion that was approved unanimously by Bessie. And in the motion, you can see that they did mention specifically certification, but they left it open enough that we can discuss whatever it is that you feel necessary. So again, that's in draft, and I'll open it up for discussion. So where would you propose that be added, including Montessori?
Certification and curriculum,
Okay.
because it's one of the public Montessori education issues. And also the National Center of Montessori in the public sector would also be another really good resource. In addition to MACD,
Can you repeat that? National what?
National Center of Montessori in the public sector.
Dr. Gabrielle, would this need to include verbiage for private and public, or so know that would
It's up to you all.
consideration?
Yeah, we obviously do have private Montessori represented because they bring such value and can certainly add to the conversation around public Montessori. And we do as a department, I'm not sure if all of the Montessori are accredited, but some of the privates are accredited.
We don't want to do anything with this that's gonna mess up what they've done. They've done a lot of work for certification in the private sector in the past, and we don't, you know, we want to make sure we don't do anything that's undermining their work, that's not them where they.
So, but at the same time, it's also a challenge for non-public schools to have their teachers certified. So any work done with certification is definitely of interest to the public schools.
Okay, so it would read something to the effect of study and make recommendations regarding public and private Montessori education issues, including Montessori certification and curriculum, to include input from national organizations and experts, including but not limited to MACD and the National Center of Montessori in the public sector. So if you all are okay with that, we would need a motion and a second to approve.
Motion to accept the changes. A second.
Nikki? Okay, so yeah, so as an advisory group, you can either receive that or you can endorse the purpose. We would ask that you would consider endorsing if we can have a motion and a second for
A
that.
motion to endorse the new wording to the purpose of our Montessori.
And that, and Ms. Sarah.
It's look, LOUQU.
Oh, QE.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the next portion, which is the consideration of a status report regarding Montessori certification policy. So we need a motion to receive this report. We have a motion from Dr. Franklin. May I have a second? We have a second from Dr. Corbett. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, so we're going to turn it over to Miss Christy Ballou, who is the Director of Certification and Chief of Staff for our office, who is going to share an update with you on Bulletin 746, specifically around Montessori certification.
Good morning. So just to kind of provide you with some of the options that are available through the certification office. The first option is the non-public Montessori ancillary certificate. It's a standalone certificate. It has 5-year validity. It is renewable with effectiveness. You know, this past legislative session, we changed some things with our legislators to where effectiveness appropriate to the setting in which they're serving would be allowed to renew these certificates. Well, all teaching certificates, but that's another conversation for another day. There are 3 different types. Type C requires the training only. Type B requires the training plus a year of Montessori teaching experience. Type A, junior class A and junior Montessori requires a degree, a year of Montessori teaching experience, and the training. Now, all of the training has to be completed from an approved training provider. And of course, the degree that's required for the type A is a bachelor's degree, and it does have to be from an accredited college or university. That's in pretty much all of our certification policy.
For an A.
For the A, yes.
Yeah, you
that's
said
right.
bachelor's.
Oh,
It's a
sorry.
master's
Yes.
degree for a type A.
Any questions about the non-public Montessori ancillary certificate? So this is a standalone certificate. You don't necessarily have to have completed what we would consider traditional teacher preparation. You can do MACD as one of the approved bodies, which we're going to get to in just a second. Oh, we have a question up front.
No, I was gonna ask who were.
Yes. So the approved training providers, this is listed in law and it's basically copied in policy. It's the American Montessori Society. It's the Association of Montessori International, St. Nicholas Training Course of London, the Montessori World Education Institute, Montessori Institute of America, Southwestern Montessori Training Institute, International Montessori Council, and any other course that is jointly approved by both BESI and LMA. And there is a process if LMA approves the how we also get them jointly approved by BESI.
So there,
I was just gonna say, so if are we looking at those? I think the ones we're thinking are gonna be, so because I know some of those aren't back to accredited. And, like Southwestern's not even in business anymore. So we just wanna make sure we clear it up.
Louisiana Montessori Association has been working hard for the past couple of years. And get the wording of that changed. So instead of it lists them, so we have teachers that have those trainings, they still continue to recognize. But to add a line in that says, or any other MACD accredited program, because it's been a big challenge for non-public Montessori teachers who go through a MACD accredited program like it was
Center for Guided Montessori Studies.
And so we have to appeal and go through an appeal process to say, hey, this is a valid training course. So we've been working with a state representative to introduce legislation that would change the wording of that. So we're hopeful that at least for non-public teachers, that can be there.
It'd be nice if we both could use the same.
Right, and we don't want to eliminate the ones that are in there.
Right.
Because they've already been approved by that, so we don't want to take that approval away. We just like to add that line and if it's a MAC accredited, it's right.
So one of the purposes of this task force is to be able to endorse things. And so Ms. Flaherty, being the president of LMA, obviously has that connection. So if they would perhaps submit something to this task force. The task force could endorse adding something about MACD accredited, and then we could bring that to Bessie.
As a recommendation. Now, of course, some of it would require legislative changes first, but we're happy to help where we can. Any other questions so far? So you can also have a Montessori endorsement added to your regular teaching certificate. It can be a public teaching certificate or a non-public teaching certificate, but to get your regular level 1, 2, or 3 teaching certificate, you have to have completed a teacher preparation program that included student teaching or internships, something like that. Have to have passed exams, all of those things. Now, to get this endorsement, you would have to first have a valid level teaching certificate, and then you must have completed the training from one of those approved training providers that were listed on the slide before. As far as the endorsement validity, it's valid as long as the teaching certificate is valid. And so depending on which level teaching certificate it's attached to will determine, its validity.
Personally, this was extremely easy.
Mm-hmm.
I did this myself this year. And I got all 3 levels, primary, E1 and E2 added as an endorsement on my personal teaching certificate. So once I got my diploma, which I held 2 of them, because I was just holding them, because no offense, I didn't want to keep paying that money. And y'all know what I'm talking about, that little fee. So I just sent it all in, and that was seamless. That was actually really easy to do.
To do this, though, just to be clear, you have to have a teaching certificate first. So there's another option, and it really depends on the program. The other possibility is an out-of-state teacher preparation route. And this kind of has been opened up only recently when they changed in our policy the accreditation rule. Previously, it had to be from a regionally accredited college or university. Now it's nationally accredited. And so MACD, of course, is one of the national accrediting bodies. So it kind of opened up the door a little bit in the last year or so that wasn't open before. But there's a couple things about it. Well, first of all, it's a temporary certificate. It does have 3-year validity. The individual must have completed a teacher preparation program from an accredited program. Again, they have to be a national accrediting body that accredited whatever training program it was. It does need to include student teaching, internship, or residency, because that's a part of our, what we call OS, or out-of-state policy for reciprocity. It does indicate that they have to hold or be eligible to hold standard certification in that state, wherever their preparation program is approved to offer or to operate. And so if they don't have this part, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. So they either have to hold a standard certificate in the other state or be eligible for standard certification in that other state. Some states recognize Montessori as a standard certificate, some states do not. So that's where it's not going to be the same for everybody that has done this. And then, of course, there's a minimum of a bachelor's degree from an accredited university or college that is required. If a candidate has no out-of-state teaching experience, which would meet our exam exclusion policy prior to applying for this certificate, then they would be required to take Louisiana's adopted exams in alignment with whatever area they were prepared for. And the thing that I am unclear about is we would prescribe pedagogy exams. I'm not sure how applicable that pedagogy exam would be towards Montessori or in alignment with Montessori or not. So that may be something to consider and discuss with this group. One other thing about the exam exclusion is that if they do have 3 years of successful teaching experience prior to employment in Louisiana or prior to application for this OS certificate in Louisiana, that will meet exam exclusion, and they would not have to take any Louisiana adopted exams. There are few and far between that have been able to come through this route, because there are so many pieces that have to fall into place for this, but it is a third option. Are there any questions about that? All right. So, this particular, slide just shows all of the different pieces of our law and policy. So RS 173401 is that law that speaks to Montessori education in those accredited bodies. That Ms. Flaherty was talking about that they're trying to get potentially amended. Bulletin 741 non-public is the Louisiana Handbook for non-public school administrators for those non-public Montessori schools. I would imagine this would be applicable there. Then Bulletin 741, the Louisiana Handbook for school administrators for all other public schools. And then of course, Bulletin 746, which is where we live most of the time, is the certification of school personnel. And we can absolutely send you a copy of this deck if it's not already been sent, and you can have these links so that you can use that for reference in the future. Are there any questions anybody has just in general of our current state of Montessori?
The next item is the consideration of task force goals and small group discussion regarding Montessori education issues. May I have a motion to move into this item? Okay, we have a motion from Ms. Saragusa. Do we have a second? A second from Ms. Flaherty. So for this portion of the meeting, one of the things that we wanted to do was really gather information around what your concerns and your ideas were. We have been working, we've already put in a request to our analytics team to try to get the following data for us. The number of private schools, the age ranges, and the grade group structures, the number of public Montessori schools, age ranges, and grade group structures that we have in the state of Louisiana, the number of childcare facilities that are Montessori based.
Now, this is to the extent that we collect the data. Depending on what our data team brings back, will determine what we actually can capture, but that's what we've asked for.
The other thing we are trying to gather data on is which states have pathways to certification for Montessori and how their structures work. And then one thing we know is Virginia actually allows funding for early childhood through Montessori. And so we're going to sort of investigate how they're doing that.
I think Georgia also did that.
Georgia does offer a certificate in Montessori. I don't know about the funding piece, but Georgia.
About the funding, 100% positive.
Yeah, the other thing that I know from my experience in Iberville was we were able to do age 3, 4, and K in classrooms, and we were able to use Head Start funding. And I don't recall exactly how we did that. Mr. Powell was the chief academic officer at the time. And so he was intimately involved in that. So that's something else that we also want to do.
Yeah. But it's run as a separate entity. So our 3-year-olds are run by themselves. And then after the 3, we cluster the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah.
Yeah. So we thought that
They
that
would
would
bridge that. And there was a clause or something. I don't know if it was changed after y'all did it, but we looked into it because when we went visit, we couldn't figure out how y'all looped it in.
So what we're going to do is sort of divide into some small groups. We've got some chart paper in different sections, and we're going to allow you in groups of 2 to go to each of the charts so that we can get everyone's perspective around certification. Christy, we're not gonna do the miscellaneous. We're gonna do, professional development,
Professional volunteer.
the Montessori organization. You know, and I'm not talking about all the ducks in a row, but the way that the organization in the state currently works and what you all would like to see as perhaps a Louisiana joint group Montessori Association. We're also going to do funding and finance. And the final one is certification. All of that will ultimately lead to you all approving goals for the task force. We do have some in draft, just so that we could get the discussion started. So what we're going to do is we'll count off in up to 4. And Lana and Rachel, if y'all can maybe participate just to hear some of the discussions as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Where would we talk about the curriculum part?
Let's,
Do you want to include the miscellaneous?
let's, why don't we put,
So we do have a poster for miscellaneous. I can add that here.
yeah, so that's what we would do. So we'll do 5s. And so, yeah, if you wouldn't mind maybe participating in part of the discussion. And Ashley, if you want to join as a Montessori mama, are you? Okay, so we'll do 1 through 5.
2, 3,
4.
6.
1.
1, sorry.
3, 4, 5, 2, 3.
Perfect. So what we'll do is the 1 will come to professional development, the 2s to miscellaneous curriculum, the 3s to organization, the 4s to finance funding, the 5s to certification, and we'll give you about 5 minutes at each stage, and then we'll rotate you around so that everybody has input on all of the different topics. Four, yes, 5. And Andy, if you want to move that poster over to the table, we just didn't want to put it where people sit. So feel free to go ahead and begin your discussions around the appropriate chart, and we'll tell you when it's time to move. Yeah. We want your input. So yes, you were a number 2, so you're gonna go to that. Are you?
I'm coming.
And get that, so she she never was you know, so that was also
For saying our which we did.
Utilizing that heritage again, and maybe the one. Back. It's like we don't want okay, so that's something, you know, some of the better something. Yeah. Yeah, it's the it's work. And your part. Clustering and now the great stand.
Okay, time's up. I did. Oh, you forgot. Okay.
Let's go ahead and move this way. So Dr. Franklin, y'all are gonna move over that way. Y'all move this way.
And we can catch it on another paper.
Not yet.
Yeah, go ahead and
Yep.
start it.
Oh, we're gonna
Yeah.
start it now?
Yeah.
We're not swapping out.
I'm gonna.
Sure.
To me, that makes sense.
Yeah, and, Dr. J, here too.
Yeah.
Finding you, trying to leave it all under actually. So more.
So look, I have you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So. I think that would be
Yeah, we're like, so that.
Yeah. Either one. Thanks.
So you don't. Right, right.
So maybe that and what on the organization, a true story organization could do to prevent their. So think about that. Thank you.
Because we don't do the traditional.
Ready to rotate again? Yeah, we need to run that way.
They would be. Yes, that's okay. And we'll have to see. They have yeah. Be considered here. So then the morality that is research. It's been that first year when done with certified teacher. Working as part of that, I'll be my team here May. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is huge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Working with it's not, it's like. Yeah, I know. They won't. That's your dad. No. I thought I read it. Oh, okay. So not even. But. Yeah, I'm not. Those programs are.
If everybody to the next post, please.
Yeah. I feel better. It's true. There's nothing else like that. To do it all.
to do it. So. Yeah, and then. Oh, so that is far more. You're not spending enough minutes in a day and it's for your grade bump, you have your class. Right, so that happens. Yeah, I'm not here. Well, also, one thing we thought was the when we're trained and bring all observation classes. And then we did that, like, I never heard when first things there. Those class, trying to lay down, it's kind of like that student. Discussion of one about. We did the talent program this year. Love it. But then I had like in that other students. They have monastery ties. Another thing, the poly program right now is actually going on. Just that it can be like. Don't know. They don't, it's not for a year, right? They teach you what not showing what they do for the second. That's those things like the editor school, like you're like try the walls and you choose where you can be. Yeah. collaborating.
You don't have the scale, you know, in up to you, so. Right. Last year.
All right, let's go ahead. We're gonna rotate one final time before we do some sharing out and solidifying some goals. It should get a little bit easier because the poster should be close to full.
Yes, ma'am. Jasmine.
No, I would push that harder. And I think it's being like.
The time.
However, yeah, you don't need, but I do feel like it's, I can tell you that I don't. The lessons in front of.
So like, yeah, so there was a 2-year gap. But even before training with Keenly, he's been in this role for a really long time. We technically only see one evaluation. Yeah. So. On a level 1 certificate. I have to look at her appeal record. I taught kindergarten from 19 to 21 and she did it through 21. What are recommendations?
You said how did they remove it? So they and then basically.
Yeah, so, I mean, it'll be something that.
Okay, it would be just whatever preparation they do. If they be able to. That would be they have to be. But the ancillary they have to do. The ancillary. Is where you. Require more
Like, we have building a bridge to a line. Yeah, well, the same thing, but actually, like, it was in place when I was building a line.
So if everyone would make their way back to their seats, and the person who's gonna share out the poster, if you would bring the poster back with you, please. I hate to cut off the conversation, it's so rich, but we're trying to keep you all on. Yeah, please, whoever is gonna do some sharing. Thank you all so much for such rich discussion. Ultimately, our goal today is to create some goals. We have some in draft, but we felt like having you have conversation and sharing your thoughts would help us to flesh these out. So what we're going to do is we'll go through each of the 5 poster groups, and somebody is going to generally speak to some of those things. But ultimately, what we want to do is leave with a set of goals that this task force is going to primarily focus on. So let's go ahead. We'll start with you, Miss Luke.
I think I have the summarization of all of y'all, because without this, nothing can happen. Y'all wanna guess which one I have? So I have the funding, the finance. So we all know, and I was speaking in our group, that in St. James, we utilized only our general fund to do our school. There was no additional funding, and that depletes a lot of resources. So to try to get either the teachers trained, we all know that's expensive, because nothing's close. You know, we wish it was close, but nothing's close to get trained. And then if it's virtual, we all know that doesn't work, because they have to touch the materials. You have to be embedded in just the environment. So to get that true understanding and feeling of Montessori. So training becomes very expensive, but not just for the teachers, but we said administrators, school level administrators, district level administrators, state level administrators truly need to be trained in the Montessori approach. Funding, considering for materials, we all know materials are expensive. They break, they get utilized, and we all know we want them pretty and nice, because, you know, that's what children flock to. But, you know, the little knobs break, or, you know, when you try to do, if you try to go the cheap route, it doesn't last. So, you know, we all know material is expensive, but you can't really spend too much money, because the money you get from the state needs to be on a tier 1 curriculum, and we're not considered a tier 1 curriculum. So possibly changing that. We talked about PD, and I know the one with professional development, I know you got a whole list, but being able to utilize money for all the PD that we talked about. And staffing, I wasn't sure, but I'm thinking that's going up there with the train. We talked about the different avenues we could get money, possibly allowing it to be in the super app, utilizing Head Start funds, using Title I funds, utilizing, but all those have parameters right now we can't utilize. Why? Because we're not considered a tier 1 curriculum. And then requirements for funding relating, we talked about, and then looking at possible other grants. And then retention and recruiting is also, areas that funding needs to be put towards.
Any final thoughts
Did I miss
on
anything?
finance and funding?
So yeah, I had the same
Okay, so one of the goals that we have in draft again is to recommend considerations for funding availability for Montessori schools. So, you know, obviously, one of the things that we're gonna have to do perhaps at the next meeting is talk about what all the available things are. And then we, as a task force, may have to endorse something, and then we can submit that to, you know, state level, high level leaders. All right, let's go with Dr. Franklin and professional development.
She has all the money, once we get that thing going, then we gotta figure out what to do with our people and our schools after that. So there were some great things, if you haven't got to go back and look at this, Melanie will table the back. But one of the big things that I loved that was on here was the collaboration discussion between the public and the private Montessori schools, which kind of ties into whoever has the organizational thing. Making it more aware. I know when I did my dissertation on Montessori, I had to like find places and things to do my studies on, because there's not a lot of professional development currently that is reasonable for some of our up and starter schools, or even our schools that have been full-fledged Montessori for a while. Our trainings are very expensive, you know, especially if you have a new teacher prep program, it's $9,000 to start just a training of one person. If you're considering doing multiples, that can get very expensive. So that funding stream also ties into here just a little bit. But one of the conversations that we wrapped up right before the end was discussing about a possibility of like hybrid type systems. We know that there's the virtual that you were talking about, but we also feel like there's that need to touch and feel, but also figuring out how there might be a possibility of creating a Louisiana-based training facility per se, whether that be, you know, here at the department or can branch off in different districts. That way we can tie it and align it more of what we're doing here in Louisiana in regards to how we're going to do our certification. We can align our training with our assessments along with what we want them to do with our state standards. We might make a good mesh moving forward with that. So with that also comes that discussion of how are we going to align the Montessori curriculum. And I know that was something that we've touched on a little bit about getting it tier 1 so that we can get some funding per se. But then the discussion of PD around all of our assessments, our grading. I know that, you know, across the state, we all look at grading and assessments differently. Some may give grades, some don't. Some may just use different parts of classroom management, you know, and then those structures around how we look at our teachers and evaluate our teachers. So having some kind of PD, once we figure out what our next steps are with curriculum, would be a great alignment here. But then I also love the tag in on the bottom of having the transitions in Montessori implementation, but having some more supports. I know in our district, we need curriculum specialists per se that can come in and support. We currently don't have any for the 3 public schools that we have in Rapids Parish. Our school, I have a lead teacher that did the training with me and she's been great for our school, but I can't necessarily lend her out to others. So having that figured out would be wonderful.
Focus on Montessori.
Yes.
So we're in the school.
Absolutely.
It's supposed to do that, but it's really hard to do that with all the other things that our teachers.
Yeah. I mean, we have fabulous curriculum specialists, but they may not know what Montessori should look like and sound like per grade band.
Right.
So there's some great opportunities this month.
Any other thoughts on PD? Okay, so we do have a draft goal to discuss professional development opportunities. I didn't feel comfortable putting recommend, but with you all, maybe we could put the word recommend, but obviously we have a goal around professional development. All right, so Dr. Corbett, you're going to speak to us about organization.
Yeah, some great ideas. First, utilizing a common evaluation tool, and so thinking about an evaluation tool specifically for Montessori, which is something that would be interesting for both teacher and program evaluation. we, this was mentioned earlier, but forming a public and private Montessori association. So my understanding is that the non-public does have, some sort of, meetings or annual meetings or of sorts where there's some, dialogue and, collegiality in the public sector. That doesn't seem to exist. And so even in a way, you're sort of unaware of who's out there, who exists and what people are doing and how to organize and advocate for one another. But also for resource sharing, advocacy work, things of that nature. Also connecting with other organizations and advocacy groups. Some of them may even exist outside the state. And so when you have those advocacy groups or organizations that exist outside that are willing participants in furthering Montessori education, perhaps, for example, if you were to have a public-private Montessori association group meeting, those are the goals that can come out of a meeting of educators like that to start leveraging and engaging with those types of organizations outside, within the state or outside the state as well. And then finally, organizing a Louisiana-based teacher preparation program from Montessori credentialing. And I think creating access and accessibility for educators who have an interest in pursuing that, creating a stronger organization of like-minded individuals. I think all that would go a long way and help you execute on a lot of the other plans that are existing out there as well.
Joelle, would you mind sharing with us how LMA functions and who's it open to, et cetera?
It's open to non-public schools. Not that we couldn't have a joint organization. The Louisiana Montessori Association has 20 schools that are accredited by the Louisiana Montessori Association and the Department of Education. For membership, you can come to meetings if you're a new non-public Montessori school that isn't quite ready to be accredited yet, but we only recognize schools that, have accredited teachers, that have mixed age groups, that have a well-supplied, prepared environment. We meet once a year with a big annual meeting. We have other professional development opportunities throughout the year, but once a year in April, May, we have an annual meeting where we elect officers. We discuss things like trying to get MAC recognized. We have visitation teams. In order to become accredited, you have to have an initial visitation with a group of team members from the Louisiana Montessori Association. They check your administrative records, your classroom materials, your teacher's credentials. They observe in the classrooms to make sure Montessori practices are being implemented, that the school following the Montessori philosophy. And once accredited, they have to have a reevaluation visit every 5 years to remain Montessori accredited by Montessori Association. We were created back in the early 70s. The Department of Education recognized the Louisiana Montessori Association for non-public schools. And at that time, there was a team member from the Louisiana Department of Education that went on accreditation site visits. But currently, that's trusted to the Louisiana Montessori Association organization. And then yearly, we give a list to the Department of Education of which non-public schools are recognized.
And I want to add to that, really some of the only PD we've been able to get as Montessori educators at a cost that we can afford has been our LMA. So we have that connection that's been very helpful to those of us who are trying.
I think we could strengthen the connection. I'm trying to rectify this, but I am guilty of when our school has professional development. Have I invited Dr. Franklin's teachers? No, I need to do that. And when she has professional development, she needs to invite our teachers so we can start, making it so expensive for everyone.
Our professional development is more aimed at things that are around their one. So it's a confusion to the teachers, first of all, what are we expecting here? And then what I'm saying, y'all have offered us some really good PD that we've been able to go to about Montessori.
But it's also hard for some of us that's very rural. And so we looking for the online, the books, doing book studies, because St. James is, it's fantastic. Don't get me wrong, been there my entire life, but it's very hard because we're not near a major city. We're not near anything but sugarcane fields. So we have to be creative in our professional development where, we do allow, like, I'm taking a trip to Virginia in April and bringing one person with me and then switching out and making sure we go and seek, but that becomes very expensive,
Being able to come back and.
yeah.
And I want to say too, on this, we really need to utilize the people who've been doing this work already and instead of starting at ground zero. And PPI has been really working hard to get Montessori. Everything we've written down, they have helped in several states and have had success. They're, reaching out and they will be willing to help us, with these things.
So, like many organizations, if we could, and we do have a goal around that, a draft goal to recommend some sort of unified organization that includes private and public, because we feel like there's just so much value in that connection. But perhaps through this task force and some of the data finding, we can find all of the Montessori. We tried to have a mixed group of individuals from various places, and we had, Angie, can you give me so-and-so's connection? And, Kay, who else do you recommend? And, she was like, oh, don't forget Becky. And we need, so it was finding who's got Montessori to make sure we had that representation. But, one of the things we feel should be a goal of this task force is to recommend some sort of unified Montessori organization. Let's move to miscellaneous, primarily curriculum, I'm assuming.
So, y'all might have to add in when we're, so the limited time frame for RTI embedded.
That was a discussion around how we're struggling with the time frame in our school day. We only have so many hours in the day, and wanting to be as structured Montessori as possible, while also knowing we need to hit components like RTI and our different state required curriculum pieces, and finding, and it goes into that block of Montessori where some schools are moving towards more just having like hour or two blocks of Montessori and then the remainder of traditional. And so trying to find that balance, if there needs to be a balance, or if there's other ways of looking at that.
Okay, so just funding again, the tier 1 and the Montessori, I think that's a major component. It's getting Montessori considered a tier 1 program solving curriculum. It would solve a lot of stuff. The mixed age groups, we were just discussing how that has to be like a standard, because one school, what makes it have 2, what makes it have 3 grade levels, and what's most appropriate. A scope and sequence alignment, there's tons. There's tons of scope and sequence alignment. But the one for state standards is what's important. So, and we would rather it be based on the grade bands, which we already have the progression documents for so many of our subjects. So, I know our schools.
We also, for that, we also talk like for social studies, how when you look at the social studies scope and sequence by the state is actually flipped with the Montessori thought. It is actually opposite. So, what we're doing is we're taking stuff that's, truly not age appropriate and trying to utilizing the Montessori that's for the, and flipping it. Just because they have to utilize it because they have to know it for the state assessment.
Correct.
So we are stuck in that manner. K2 is you have a little bit more freedom, but then once you get to 3-6, and then have to utilize that state assessment, we have to take that state assessment. We do more of let's make it Montessori and doing the 3-part cards and the different things, but when you look at it, Louisiana, where it's taught versus where the, Egyptians are taught, it's all opposite. It's literally flipped in the timeline. So that was one of my big things of when things are introduced is opposite from the philosophy of what we truly believe.
There's no accountability. I did a lot of research on this. Most other states that have a large public Montessori presence do not have yearly accountability testing in elementary grades and science and social studies.
Mhm.
They have reading and math. And that allows them flexibility to do a 3-year cycle, or it alternates. They're like, yes, there's a science test at these every 2 grades or every other grade. So it allows them to modify that cycle so they can meet those accountability. That was a big, wow. And they're like, oh, we take a state test in that every year. I was like, "Oh, that would be really.
Yeah.
And then, somebody, y'all said that on yours, but instead of grades, maybe looking at number systems like that. And then, the mandates of pre-K, 4-year-olds, like how's that gonna fit in? They have a lot more requirements right now than, Montessori or just K and up required. So how's that gonna look? And what's gonna be?
Any other thoughts?
Case with accountability. Cause I'm saying we've had to shift to more traditional as we get to upper L, but now with the case with accountability, as we're waiting to see what that looks like on board, that's what we should.
For sure.
Sense in Montessori, like letter name fluency, right, is one of the first measures that we have to do with the literacy testing. Well, in Montessori, you don't push the letter name, you push the letter sound. They do get it, but of course, they all get flagged because they don't know their names, but that's, yes, we're doing the sounds. They can, give us those concepts and they moving and grooving. But then you're saying, well, why they're not doing so bad, or why they're doing horrible in the letter naming, and we have to say, that's not how you read. Like that's not what you don't read, you don't say VAT. Like, you're good. Like, let's move on to
It's funny because some of our, like, we have CKLA and they don't push letter names either, but our pre-K program pushes letter names.
Yes.
So it's kind of backwards.
Yeah. So we don't have a specific curriculum goal. But there's, obviously.
Yeah, funding and changing it to tier 1 curriculum.
Right, and I'm not sure if funding covers it well enough, because, funding could become available if Montessori was considered tier 1. But so, any thoughts on a goal specifically around curriculum?
Consideration of it. Yeah, what makes it, we looked at that in when we were in the majority, we did, about what it takes to be a tier 1 curriculum.
So aligning it to the tier 1 platform.
Yeah, like what is Montessori?
It's missing several pieces that we consider
to be considered a tier 1 curriculum.
But the problem is they're thinking of it as a standalone, like this 1 year, whereas Montessori is a 3-year cycle.
Right.
So once again, I think it's somebody who's not understanding, like Montessori, and once they go through the 3 and looking at it as a mastery of standards and not this assessment, or because you're not going to, we're not going to have the pieces and parts of a tier 1, but having maybe them consider Montessori for a tier 1 program in its entirety, not, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Not grade
or anything that makes you eligible to do something like that.
I think a lot of it would have to come from this task force. Now, we were supposed to have somebody from academic content today, but they had team meetings scheduled. But Kina Magana she's gonna be the academic content person liaison. She's got Montessori experience. So yeah, so what would be a goal around curriculum?
What's the verb?
You can use recommend.
A waiver or tier 1 Montessori.
I don't know if we want to just say tier 1 curriculum, because there's a lot of issues around curriculum, like the scope and sequence we talked about. Yes, a tier 1 because of funding, but I think we need it maybe to be a little bit more broader than just saying making it a tier 1, like recommend considerations for utilizing Montessori as a standalone curriculum.
Okay.
So then we can feel a couple of extra things in there. I don't know, I mean, help with the wording, because I'm not an English major.
Yeah, so right now we have recommend consideration of utilizing Montessori as a standalone curriculum.
Yeah, but not, yeah, that's not like that.
Including but not limited to.
Including but not limited to.
Y'all hold on, let's, everybody, go ahead.
If we generalize it, just to simplify it, because we may not have the answer right now, we're like emulating the first bullet, which is recommends Montessori curriculum policy updates for, just,
General.
yeah,
Mhm.
just so that I think as a group, we can get to what that final answer might be, as opposed to putting ourselves in a corner.
Also, anything that we would recommend for everyone that has to dovetail with accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should add that word in. I just think the word curriculum needs to be somewhere up there, because that's
I
one of
agree.
our major problems.
Recommend considerations regarding curriculum.
Curriculum.
And
And then it,
accountability.
and then it's general enough to where, like, we're not trying to put the answer in the goal, because we really don't know in the discussion. We haven't had enough this, right?
Or do we want to put accountability as another goal? Do we want to clump it with curriculum? Or do we want accountability?
I would think to put it together, just because if we do offer a solution for curriculum, we're gonna need to say how we're gonna talk about it. You know, so.
So we definitely need to review all of these things.
And instead of saying consideration to recommend review of curriculum and accountability.
I vote for her for privilege.
So we have recommend review of curriculum and accountability applicable to Montessori. Recommend a review of curriculum and accountability applicable to Montessori. Okay, so we would need to then have a motion to accept the 4 goals and the additional 5th. Oh, we have one more poster, certification.
So with certification, we have pathways without teaching degree, but including MACT certification program. We definitely want to have some leadership opportunities. We have certification by grade bands, and this is teacher preparation on site. No.
We were having a discussion of out of state.
Oh, out of state, okay. Can you explain what you were?
I don't remember what all we were discussing. I was asking her questions about if they were taking a teacher preparatory program that's outside state Louisiana, and how that relates to our current. One of those 3 that she had listed for us earlier, the connections of how they could, almost like a loophole. In a way, if you're doing it out of state, you can go to the loophole of the out of state certificate. Until you earn that 3-year effectiveness and passing the Louisiana boards or whatever you need for your program. Cause it kind of like bypasses it.
Also, we have national board recognition and some type of alternative Montessori certification for those who are already teaching, but they want to take a Montessori.
The grades things. I added the exclamation point in one of the asterisks because, I don't know how y'all cluster, but the way we're clustering the 3, 4, 5, 6 is catching us with teachers' certificates.
Yeah.
Because it's pre-K 3.
Yeah.
And then you have your 4, 6, or your 4, 5, and then your 6th grade has to be highly qualified in a certain subject area.
Yep.
And it's making it extremely hard to cluster.
Yeah.
School certification.
Yeah.
That's
We
really
actually
helped it.
wrote that.
Oh, yeah, 1A, woo-hoo.
Exactly.
Yeah, we actually wrote that because of that, so something needs to align with what
Yes.
we have, yeah.
Right.
It's very difficult staffing.
Lots of things.
Okay, so obviously we have a recommendation for certification policy updates. Okay, so we need a motion to accept these 4 goals with the 5th one that you all just wrote.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Okay, we have a motion from Dr. Franklin. We need a second.
A second.
Oh, to endorse the
Oh,
goal.
I make a motion to endorse the goals.
A second to endorse the goal.
Okay, so our next meeting is going to be held March 7th from 10 to 12 in this room. I will work with Mr. Powell to set the agenda. We are going to share out minutes from today with you with all of the corrections and adjustments that we've made to the slides today.
The AMS conference.
Right, I was thinking
Oh.
I'll be at AMS, right.
What is that?
Mayor Thomas.
Oh, wow.
I'm
Waiting
sure
for schedule.
people in this room are going to that.
Yeah. So we're gonna have to,
Do you want to put the next date that we had chosen originally?
what was the next date was in April?
Yeah, so, you look.
Because we have to schedule around room availability and
It was actually May 16th.
yeah, equipment, et cetera. So
May 16th.
yeah, we can't
That's
wait
far.
till May.
Looks to be pretty full, like the 5 speakers. I'm not looking at the room availability, but it does look like there may be an opportunity in April
Okay.
On the 18th, maybe.
to there.
So we're looking at a potential for April 18th as a tentative.
And we'll reach out. with a definite once
We'll
we
make
get
sure we get you,
confirmation.
yeah, because there's.
Sorry.
Oh, is there a national conference?
No, not a national conference. She's doing a visit to a school.
Yeah, our national magnet conference is that week. Yeah, that's okay. Keep going.
We'll find a date in April.
And I can probably hop in on Zoom.
Yeah, you can, yeah, you could live stream, yeah, at least live stream
You
the
could watch
meeting.
it, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so we'll work on finding another date in April. We'll get that to you as soon as possible. Hopefully when we have all the minutes, we've been getting all of that done. So with no further business, that concludes the first meeting of the Louisiana Department of Education Montessori Task Force meeting.
So there is
She
it's
told
a
me.
public.
That's what she was just looking at.
Yeah, that's one of.
There's no further.
It's the weekend
business.
before, so it's the public Montessori conference is,